Graham here for Trailblazer RV to take you through this 2012 Pacific Coachworks Tango 299 BHS. Starting right here at the front of the trailer where you've got your propane and battery systems. This one has dual 30-pound propane bottles and an automatic switchover propane regulator. So right now it's selected to this bottle, making this the supply and this the reserve bottle. As long as both bottles are open, the regulator will deplete the supply bottle first, then automatically start to pull from the reserve bottle. Once the first bottle is empty, this sight glass will turn red, and you can switch the regulator over to the second bottle and remove the first one to go and refill it. And you don't have to shut down your propane system to do that. Behind the propane bottles is your battery. It's a 12-volt deep cycle battery with a red positive and a black negative lead going to it. There's also a separate positive lead for your power jack that is also black. The previous owner taped it off with red electrical tape to indicate that it is a positive rather than a negative, but it might be a good idea to just tape these two wires together so that you know that they always go to positive. It is a flooded wet cell battery, so we recommend a couple of times a year removing these caps and checking the fluid level in the cells. If it seems a little low, and especially if you can see metal plates sticking through the fluid, just top it up with some distilled water and put a good charge on the battery. We recommend removing the battery for winter storage and storing it inside somewhere where it's not going to freeze. If possible, putting a charge on the battery, a trickle charge, once or twice over the course of the off-season. Here in the front storage compartment is where you'll find your 30 amp power cord. Many sites that you stay at will have 30 amp power available, but some won't, so we also supply a adapter to 15 amp power. A couple of crank handles in here, the larger to crank your stabilizer jacks down. You'll crank those down to be snug with the ground, but you don't want to actually lift the trailer with them. They're not for leveling, just for stabilizing. And the second crank handle is for your slide out. Should you ever need to crank the slide in manually, you can do it with this. Right here is where you'll fill your fresh water tank. You can do that with one of those white non-toxic drinking water hoses, and you won't get the garden hose taste in your water. Furnace exhaust is here. This gets very hot while your furnace is operating, so make sure not to touch that. And below that is where your fresh water tank drain is, and you can see the last of the water just draining out of that fresh water tank. Now your running gear, your tires are inflated to 50 psi. It's stamped right on the sidewall of the tire, 50 psi cold, and we do recommend running them right at 50 psi. The lug nuts have been torqued to 100 foot-pounds, and we recommend periodically retorquing lug nuts with a towable RV and repacking wheel bearings. This one has the Easy Lube axles, so you can grease your bearings with a grease gun, but that doesn't eliminate the need to repack those wheel bearings every 3 to 5 years or so. Right here is where you'll do your sewer dumping. Sewer hose connects right here, and you've got a couple of valves here for your black tank, your sewer here on the left, and your gray water here on the right. Always dump the black first, and then once that's finished draining, you can close this and use the gray water to flush the contents through that sewer hose. This is your low point water line drains. That's the lowest point of your water system. If you open up all of the taps inside and then open these valves, it'll drain all of the water out of the system. right here is where that 30 amp power cord attaches. We supply a new sewer hose. It's a 20-foot sewer hose stored in the rear bumper. And right here is where you'll connect your city water. If you're staying at a site that has water hookups, you can hook the hose right up to here. Then you don't need to use your water pump and worry about running out of water from your freshwater reserve. If you're hooking up to city water, we recommend using a water pressure regulator to ensure that you don't over pressurize your water lines. Right here is your hot water tank. This is a gas electric DSI water tank. So you can run it on electricity by turning this black rocker switch to the on position. Right now I'll leave it off. And you'll also find two black reset buttons here. These are ECOs. If you ever overheat the water tank, these will pop out. You'll have to reset them before the tank can start again. That would typically only happen if you started up the tank with no water in it. You can pull the drain plug from the bottom of the tank to drain the water, and on that plug is a rod about that long. It's your anode rod, and the anode rod will corrode over time to preserve the inside lining of the tank. It can get pitted and quite pitted and corroded looking, and it will need to be replaced every 5 years or so, depending on the quality of the water. Before you pull that out, make sure to bleed the pressure off of the tank using the pressure relief valve so that it doesn't spray when you remove the plug. Your awning is a height adjustable power awning, adjustable from the outside using these tabs. It can be adjusted when it's in the in position or the out position, but it's actually easier to adjust when it's in the in position. So if you tip one corner down on that awning, you can control where the rainwater runs off. Right here is your fridge vent. The vent can be, or the panel can be removed to access the back of the fridge for cleaning or maintenance, but mostly just a vent. It's rare that you ever need to get in there for anything. This tube sticking through the vent is here deliberately. This is a condensation drip tube. Leave it sticking out of the vent so that the condensation will drip outside of the RV instead of into the RV. And your step, to extend your step, the first step rolls, the second step flips. So flip, roll. Right inside the door is where we should be able to find our awning switch, right up near the top. So press and hold the out button to extend the awning. Sometimes they can hang up when they first start. It just needs a little push. It's a little windy today, so I'm not going to bring the awning all the way out, but it'll extend a full 8 feet. You can stop it at any point. You don't need to bring it the full 8 feet out if it's if there's a tree or another RV in the way. Yeah, full 8-foot extension, and just press and hold the in button or the out button. We recommend in really windy conditions that you just bring the awning in. So follow me inside the trailer here, and we'll go through a few more things. A couple of lights, light switches right here by the entry door. One for your main bank of interior lights, and the other for your outside light. Right here in the kitchen is your get this fixed before you pick this trailer up tomorrow. Right here in the kitchen is your 3-burner stovetop. So all 3 of these burners can be lit using the piezo sparker. There we go. And the reason that took so long to light those last two burners is because we've recently had the propane system disconnected. And anytime you switch a propane bottle or reconnect your propane system, I always recommend that you come here and just light all three of these burners. Once you've lit the burners, you know that you have bled the air off of the propane system, and you'll have no problem lighting your automatic appliances like your fridge, furnace, and hot water tank. The only pilot light that you have to worry about in the RV is the oven pilot, and that is right here. So to light this pilot light, turn the oven knob over to pilot on, push in and hold, and light that pilot underneath with a barbecue lighter. Once you've got a pilot flame there, continue to hold the knob in for another 10 or 15 seconds just for that thermocouple to heat up. Then you can turn the oven up to temperature and you should be good to go. Once you're finished using the oven, you can turn it down to pilot on and just leave the pilot burning, or turn it all the way off and just relight it next time you need to use the oven. The fridge is an automatic gas electric fridge. So if we turn it on, and I always recommend just leaving it in the automatic setting. When it's in automatic, if it's got electricity available, it'll always run on that. But if it loses power, it'll sense that and it'll automatically start up on gas. You can override the electricity to only run on gas, and you may find that the fridge cools a little bit faster on gas, but it still takes several hours to cool down an RV fridge. So we recommend that you get the fridge running preferably the day before you pack up, so it's nice and cold when you're ready for it. Below that fridge is your power converter. So the power converter is where you'll find all of your breakers and fuses. Breakers for all of your 110 volt circuits, fuses for all of your 12 volt circuits. You've got primarily 15 amp fuses here with a couple of 30 amp fuses. So not a bad idea to have some spare fuses with you. It's not uncommon in an RV to blow a fuse. If you have some spares, it won't be a big deal if you have to change one at the campground. Next to that is your propane leak detector. This will do two things. It'll alert you, obviously, if you have a propane leak. But if you do have a propane leak, you will almost certainly smell the propane before that alarm goes off. The second thing that it does is alert you to low voltage. It's wired into the RV's 12 volt electrical system, so if you have a low RV battery, this will alarm just like a smoke detector does when its battery is getting low. Right here towards the back of the trailer is where your slide out control is. So if you just press and hold the out button, the slide extends. It's an electric above floor slide mechanism, so it just goes straight out and straight in. Also here on this wall is where you'll find your thermostat and monitor panel. Thermostat controls both the heating and cooling systems for the RV. So there's a fan setting here. This should always be left in automatic rather than setting it to high or low. If the fan is set to high or low, the air conditioning fan will come on even when the furnace is running. Always recommendation is just always leave the fan in automatic mode. Air conditioning will only come on when you're plugged into power, but furnace will come on using the battery and propane. And you hear that furnace fan start up. The fan comes on immediately, but it'll be 10 or 15 seconds before the burner itself lights up. We'll hear that when it happens. There we go. So now the furnace burner is operating, and in a few seconds we would have warm air blowing from our floor registers. Once it comes up to temperature, or you shut off the system, the burner goes out immediately, but that fan is now going to continue to run for 30 seconds to a minute just to go through its cycle before it shuts down. Above that, you have your monitor panel. So this is where you'll activate your water pump to pump water from your fresh water tank, and also where you'll activate your hot water heater to operate on electricity. To operate on gas. To operate it on electricity, it has the black rocker switch on the outside of the tank. To light the hot water heater on propane, turn the switch on. Red light comes on indicating that the burner is not active, but just like the furnace, if we give that a second or two, we should hear the direct spark ignition and that burner come on. Just like so. It'll take about 20 or 25 minutes to bring that water up to temperature. Right now we'll leave it off. This is also where you can monitor the level of your tanks. You can see your gray tank completely empty, black tank completely empty, and fresh tank still has about 2/3 of a tank of water in it, but as you can see from when we were outside, it's draining now. You can also monitor the level of your battery from here. You can see right now that it's good, low, fair, good, and if it was currently charging, it would show C. Here in the bathroom, anytime you're using your RV's sewer system, you'll want to use a good potent RV toilet chemical. It comes in powder, liquid, or tablet form. Regardless of which one you use, you'll add chemical to the tank by dumping the chemical right into the toilet bowl. Then use the foot flush, push halfway down on the foot flush to fill the bowl with water, and then dump the whole works into the tank. It's important to note that that chemical takes some water to activate it. So every time you add chemical to the tank, make sure you add some water with it. And you'll want to add new toilet chemical immediately after every time you dump that black holding tank. We talked about your propane leak detector. You also have a smoke detector, and that's mounted on the ceiling. The smoke detector is not wired into the RV's electrical system. It has its own 9-volt battery. So you want to test this periodically to make sure that that battery hasn't gone dead. Here in the master bedroom, you've got an emergency escape window here. With this style of window, it can be opened for ventilation. If you need to use it as an escape window, it just hinges all the way up. Use the red handle to pull the screen out of the window. And I always recommend to people that you practice this a few times, just because it is a little bit of a tricky window to operate, and in a panic situation you might have a hard time with it. The bed lifts up for some storage underneath here, and you've got a second TV location here on the interior wall. Some wood backing here designed for a TV mount. If you're going to mount a TV, best to mount it into this wood backing rather than the wall, because there's not a lot of backing in a laminated RV wall. I think for the most part that covers it. I hope you've learned something about the 2012 Pacific Coachworks Tango 299 BHS. If you have any questions, you can always get a hold of us here at Trailblazer, or you can check our website, trailblazerrv.com.